Engine 101, Other Level 1, District 101, 3101, Fulton Avenue, Engine 101, Operations A2.
Everybody's first in, but 101 in particular, I think gets a lot of other level ones that always turn out to be warming fires, and so that was kind of our mindset. Reading the dispatch notes as soon as I was pushing us en route, something sounded different, so I turned to Ryan and was like, hey, let's just gear up for this one. While we were just finishing getting geared up and getting in the rig and ready to roll out, and it bounced out to a CS3.
PC7, PC3, Medic 101, Engine 105, Engine 19, Engine 42, Engine 24, Rescue 20, Hazmat 109, Truck 17, AC 24, Commercial Structure, District 101, 3101, Fulton Avenue, PC7, PC3, Medic 101, Engine 105, Engine 19, Engine 42, Engine 24, Rescue 20, Hazmat 109, Truck 17, AC 24, Operations A7.
And literally as soon as you rolled out on the ramp, it's a stone's throw north of the station. We all three looked over our shoulders and said, oh yeah, okay, we got something. Showed up on scene and we had a single-story commercial structure. The initial arrival, we had a very large volume of smoke coming from the building. Most openings had smoke emitting from them, and then it was coming out under the eaves. And then I remember seeing fire on the Charlie side as we approached as well. We were on scene, the medic was right behind us, and I knew we had time, so we were just getting things set up. I was doing a 360, and everyone was kind of just working, putting the plan into play. And I was actually trying to buy time to allow other companies to actually get en route and get to the TAC before I gave any kind of an arrival. So Ryan was stretching the line, Bill was working on that and a water supply with him. I was working on a 360, and as I come back around to the A side, the medic was on scene and they were already stretching the secondary line to the Charlie side. And the other, so it was Chaika was pulling the line, Haas came up, and I just told him, hey, you've got security issues on the Charlie side, take the circ saw with you. So gave an arrival.
All right, 101's arrived. We've got a single-story commercial building. We got fire throughout the entire building. 101's going to be making a transitional attack through the Alpha side. Fulton will be Alpha. We have a water supply. I do see fire on the Charlie side as well. Next in, take command, assist with fire attack. We're going to be putting the medic to work. Go ahead and get the second one started.
It looked like we had, my initial read was that we had an exterior fire on the Charlie side that had worked its way inside. My assumption was it was probably like a camp warming fire or cooking fire that had made its way inside. And as I was finishing the lap, I could see through the Delta side windows, I could see fire pretty much from Charlie all the way to Alpha. So I gave an arrival that indicated most of that information, I believe.
All right, 101's arrived. We've got a single-story commercial building. We got fire throughout the entire building. 101's going to be making a transitional attack through the Alpha side. Fulton will be Alpha. We have a water supply. I do see fire on the Charlie side as well. Next in, take command, assist with fire attack. We're going to be putting the medic to work. Go ahead and get the second one started.
We get out, I pull 100 feet of the 1 3/4 cross just to the Alpha side. I had forced the Alpha side, Alpha Bravo door. Wasn't too bad, just used a Halligan. And then when I opened the door, I realized that we had smoke down to, would you say, like a couple feet?
Yeah, it was pretty much floor level because it was that same bidirectional. We had an exhaust out the top and an inlet at the bottom.
Pulled the rear dead load. The cross lay was already taken, so we pulled the rear dead load to the around the Alpha Delta corner. There was a gate there, it was locked. Haas came up with a saw, so as I was calling for water and masking up, he cut the man gate. I pulled the dry line up to as close as I could get to the structure. We had a good amount of fire coming out of the windows. There were 2 windows on the where I positioned my hose line. So we started to hit the eaves. I started a TA into both of the windows, and then as soon as I was able to advance, we advanced maybe 20 feet into the structure.
I turned on Fulton going northbound, and honestly, my brain had to question myself of why is there so much fire at 7 o'clock on Fulton Avenue, right? That hindsight's pretty easy. You look back and you go, Swiss cheese model lining up. That would have been the first one. It didn't make sense. 7 o'clock, Fulton Avenue is a freeway with people and folks, so to have something to get that involved on Fulton Avenue at 7 o'clock p.m. was strange. Just say that. I arrived. I gave an updated arrival report stating pre-flashover smoke through the entire Alpha side.
Yeah, all units coming in. We got approximately 3,000 square foot single-story commercial, heavy black pre-flashover smoke. Let's cool the area and get a 360.
It's not a normal arrival report, but I wanted to paint a really, really clear picture of what the intent was of the incident, that to cool the space, get a 360 before we're going to engage on any piece of this. Another attaboy went to Medic 101, who went around the Charlie side, gave a really good kind of an update of what the conditions were on the Charlie side.
We got heavy fire on the Charlie side. Medic 101 forced the gate, and we'll be doing fire attack. We need the blue line charged as soon as we get the water supply.
With their report of fire conditions on the Charlie side, thinking outside in, it's moving to the Alpha side, which was Fulton. That was my initial thought. Less worried about structural integrity, more worried about the pre-flashover piece, right? The high heat.
I saw that the Alpha Bravo corner is where Engine 11 was pulling the first line, and I was looking for the line I was going to pull. There was a grassy area right in front of the commercial space and a lot of leaves, and there was just hose going every which way. So I knew there was another line pulled, but I didn't hear on the radio that the medic had already pulled it. Followed it over to the Charlie Delta corner. At that time, we had a lot of smoke production. The Charlie side did have some fire coming out of it. Initially, I thought, hey, maybe this is an outside-in fire, and they were working on forcible entry. Circ saw to a gate, and they had their line completely flaked out, and they were masking up. At that point, I let them know, hey, I'll go get you guys water. Ran back to the Alpha Delta corner, called for water. I saw Kurt and DeSordo start to arrive to the Alpha side. I decided to join up with them. Kurt was working forcible entry with a Halligan. Tapped him on the shoulder. I said, hey, let me get this. Gave it a couple boots. We were good to go inside.
Had about 9 units, I think, on scene within about 75, 85 seconds, something like that. A typical Battalion 7 fire. So I had excess units for what I needed to be done. The building, commercial, unoccupied, at night with that fire conditions. I was definitely in a crawl to walk arena. My point is what that allowed me to do was I had an engine at a truck company sitting on a 2 outline. Essentially acting as my RIC component, just not actually as RIC. And that would be one of my cleanup things looking back. It's just make them RIC. We don't do that much as an agency, but the conditions of that building in that first 30 seconds, a minute, warranted a slow approach and a contingency plan. And that's what that was.
When we arrived, it was just a lot of smoke coming in, a lot of smoke coming from Alpha through the eaves, through I think it was a few broken windows and doorways, kind of like a dark gray brown smoke. There was a glow coming from the Charlie side. We said that we're gonna pull the 2 outline based on what command wanted. So at that point, Anthony pulled the line off Engine 101. I saw where Engine 101 was operating on that Bravo side of Alpha, and there was an additional door closer to Delta on Alpha that we decided to pop open. I wasn't sure if this occupancy was divided on the sign outside. There was spots for 2 different businesses there. Tried to force with a Halligan. At that point, firefighter Turnauer had just come around from Charlie back to Alpha. He was on Engine 103 that night, and then he offered to kick the door in. So he gave it a few kicks, popped the door in, and immediately watching the smoke conditions basically from the top of the door just go to the bottom within like a second.
I can get water for a minute. Water on pre-connect!
You got a opposing line on the Charlie side.
We got a line on Charlie? We have our line going inside on the Alpha side, but it's going to be on the Delta door on Alpha side.
Okay, copy that. You're bumping in the 2 outline. Don't get too far in. You're on fire attack, so break 42. Take that 2 outline.
We pushed in. I, based on the smoke initially from that burp, I knew that I was going to be flowing water from the door. Made my way maybe 5-8 feet in. I didn't stand there at the door long enough to see that bidirectional smoke. I definitely wasn't there for the intake when it just completely was flowing in. I don't think I was flowing for very long, but I was very wary of how far I was going to go in because it took no more than 5 feet in. Started feeling heat on my back where I had just flowed, and I'm starting to ask questions like, where's this fire? This isn't making a whole lot of sense. I looked back at turn hour, said, hey, grab me a hook. I think it's up in the attic. That's the only way I can make sense of this. And then he started popping drop ceiling out of the way. That's when we started getting lift. Whether it was the roof collapse or the truck crew getting us ventilation, it just seemed to happen all at once, like you hear people talk about.
All right, we're getting pretty deep in heat. We're gonna limit our exposure until we can get this roof opened up, ready for bid whenever it's available.
Yeah, I copy that. 101, be advised. You got, looks like maybe fire through the roof already. So let's limit our, how far we're going in here. Break, rescue 20. Let's have you all out. Give me a roof report. Let me know if you're going to do any active cutting first, though.
Rescue 20 copies, all out to the roof.
The initial assignments were fire attack, not going more than 5 feet in, cool the space, and the first engine officer, Captain Ross, did a great job initially. And I could see from my vantage point on the alpha side, I was parked on Fulton. I could see that the crews were maintaining their SA and not engaging too much. First truck arrived was Rescue 20, and I knew that because, like I said earlier, engine truck 106 were on another call. Again, looking back as we picked this thing apart weeks later here. So we had me turning on Fulton going, this doesn't make sense to me. I've been on enough fires for 25 years of surprised at the volume that I was seeing at 7 o'clock at night. Now fast forward, I give an assignment to Rescue 20 that asks for a roof report before offensive actions. Should just be more direct. Should be tell them exactly what I want in that incident, not a roof report. That's up for debate, depending on who the truck company is. I know it's being looked at in our own agency of what that report looks like, and hopefully in the SOG for the regional side. But what I was really asking, I saw a glow. What I saw was something from the Charlie side, but I couldn't tell if it was from the Charlie or if it was from parts of the roof. I needed verification of where that glow I was seeing was before I was comfortable with offensive action, any type of vertical ventilation piece. So they were providing my eyes up there. Because I was in a good vantage point, I see that truck company now almost mid-span. I can see them literally walk into the middle building, and I'm not getting the information that I wanted. Got a hold of them on the radio. When I got a hold of them on the radio, I hear saws in the background.
Rescue 20, command. How's the roof up there? It appeared like it was self-ventilating.
This is Rescue 20.
Okay, I copy. You're performing vertical vent. Confirm we have a good roof up there.
That's a full roof. Yeah, good roof.
Okay, copy that. Crews are clear to engage inside the building. We got a good roof above you.
Now we're at a decision point. I already don't have the information that I wanted before they even did this action, right? So I verified that they were on a good roof. That was my only thing I could do to salvage what was going on right now, was refocus their attention on a bigger spectrum, make sure that they were comfortable with the roof they were on. And the roof came back, the report came back that we're on solid wood right now.
Command emergency traffic, this is engine 42. The alpha side portion of the roof is collapsing already on the alpha side portion, so just beware.
Yeah, 42. Is that just the overhang you're looking at, or are you seeing the actual structural components deeper in?
That's the actual structural component in front of that small parapet wall up there. It's collapsing on the alpha side portion.
Command is 24. 24 screws on the alpha side outside the building.
I copy that. You're back outside. So all units on the scene. So we have an issue on the Alpha Delta corner with some collapse potential. So we'll all crews out of that Alpha Delta side. Break. Rescue 20, command.
Nope, Rescue 20. Got a good hole in the roof. Ventilation complete. We're getting off the roof.
I copy. You're getting off. Make sure we get off on the Bravo side. The Alpha Delta corner is impacted with a partial collapse.
In that short period of time from waiting for a roof report, confirmation that we're on a solid enough roof. The first engine asked for vertical ventilation. The next transmission after that is we have a partial collapse noted from the Alpha side. That was from the folks that were on the 2-out line. I believe it was engine 42. The initial came in as the Alpha Delta corner. Hazmat 109 got on the radio right after that, clarified that, no, you definitely have a partial collapse mid-span right on the Alpha side. At that point, all these Swiss cheese things that we're talking about, we'd had enough at this point, obviously. So pulled everybody out, got accountability for all the crews that everybody was where they should be and accounted for. And now the fire's almost out completely. It's de-escalated at this point. To give you a time frame, we are on scene from when I'm asking Chief Freaker, who was on the Alpha side, what do we need here as far as resources, because we can start cutting people loose. So just to give you a time frame, that's 7-8 minutes. So impressive from the task level and the tactical level of the members.
The condition of the building that we found after it all was said and done, all the interior walls had been removed. So it was a open 3,000 square foot footprint. We didn't know that. We assumed it was forced occupancies because the neighboring building to the north, that's how it is. And this one we'd never been in, but that's how it's designed. I think that it all comes down to communication is the big thing for me. So there's a lot of people questioning tactics by truck company on this one. And Monday morning quarterbacks are awesome, right? We learn a lot of lessons from them, but if you weren't there and you weren't in the shoes, then don't make the value statements of what you would or would not have done. I think the truck did awesome, and they did what was being asked of them by the crews on scene. So that's where I think my lesson is learned in this, is that when Ryan and I were making our initial entry inside, we were in far enough that we lost contact with our entry point. I mean, we had the hose lines. We knew where we were going if we needed to get out, but we didn't have a visual contact. The TIC wasn't providing any advantage because the thermal readings were too similar that I couldn't get any differentiation to make that thing useful. Long story short, I couldn't find the fire, right? The only thing that was going to really improve that was that we were going to get ventilation or get lift of some sort and open that space up so that we could find the fire and then put it out. I backed Ryan up, we backed up, got closer to where I could see highlights from the door. I could see the scene lights shining in from the door, so I knew where our escape was if necessary, but I wasn't willing to abandon the space totally because we still could make progress. I made a radio call that said something to the effect of, hey, based on the heat conditions, I'm not willing to push in any further, we're just gonna hunker down. I try to clarify that with people afterwards because the heat wasn't such that we had to abandon tactics. Like if that was a residential structure fire, we had a known rescue scenario, the heat was definitely not such that we were gonna abandon rescue and write this victim off. Like it was totally tenable. It was totally appropriate for us to stay in there and keep working. But given the volume of smoke I saw as we were entering the structure, given the type of structure it was, made me not want to commit going deeper into the structure. So that's what I was trying to convey, is that, hey, I'm not willing to continue committing in until I get a change in conditions. But I didn't know how to necessarily verbalize that. I hadn't prepared for that. So I just said heat. And I think what that keyed the truck into is that, hey, we got a crew inside that's taking a beating. My interpretation is I probably drove them to, or I motivated them to drive on to get something done. And it may have fallen out of sequence for what command was preferring, but I think there's good justification looking backwards at it, right? So I've been on a truck company on a roof with crews inside asking for ventilation. You're motivated to get that hole opened up to help alleviate the situation. And I think the way that I said what I said probably spurred them on in that regard, as opposed to just trying to paint the picture like, hey, I'm just gonna hold tight until I get a little bit of change in condition. I don't know how the tone would have changed or what the words I should have used were, but that's kind of my lesson learned. I need to find some better words to use.
So when we first arrived, and I should have inspected the roof because we don't know how long it was burning for. maybe we would have seen fire through the roof, but being more cognizant of what exactly is on fire, because maybe if I was actually thinking, I would have been able to see that there was a partial collapse that was actually burning.
This fire, every time I revisit it or talk about it or get on the roof or just walk it, it just shows how close we were to a close call. But during it, it didn't feel like anything crazy. You know what I mean? I thought what we were assigned to do, what we were doing the right thing on the nozzle. I felt like there was a lot of heads up. When I let them know, we got opposing lines and checking things too. Like, hey, I'm noticing the smoke. All right, let's open that nozzle. Let's pull some sealing. Let's figure out what this fire is. Let's watch out for the Charlie side line. It wasn't really till after we started being pulled out, seeing the bottom cord broken, and then once it really cleared out, being like, wow, when did this happen? Because I don't know if it was already happening, if it happened while we were inside, if it was a slow collapse or what.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway is that there's a time and a place to be flowing from the get, and that was impressive smoke, and I hope we get to see it again, but you don't get to see it very often. It was pretty obvious that it was needed to be flowed from the get. It was impressive how quickly that thing just vanished, and I think that is a testament to 1 3/4 can put out an impressive amount of fire. Who knows how much fire my line really even put out, but the fact that we surrounded that building with four lines, somebody was going to get water on fire. And looking at the video back and talking to people, maybe Medic 101 put the most of the fire out, but maybe my line's keeping things in check on my corner so it doesn't flash. And really, we don't know what's in there. We didn't know it was unoccupied before we went in there. So just cooling down your environment, and yeah, it's going to ruin your visibility a little bit, but we got to protect ourselves too. So
yeah, I definitely think training, there's definitely a part where I think training played a huge part into it, just what the burn cadre's been doing over the years and stuff. And then I think just those gut instincts, that just something's not right. I think all that kind of played into formulating, how much risk we were going to take on this one. So I thought that was, it all kind of came together at the right time. I talked to a few of the crews there that were on that fire, and I'm under the impression that ceiling and roof partial collapse happened before Engine 101 arrived. The entire time that we were there, there was, obviously change conditions based on flowing water, but if there was that type of collapse on a fire, there'd be a massive change in conditions. More smoke would be pumping out, the fire would increase, we would have heard something, we would have felt something, and we never felt anything. And that ceiling collapse was literally just 2 feet to the left of where we were operating off that hose line. I don't think you ever even ran into anything like a drop ceiling or anything that would indicate that there was something, in front of us. So I think my belief is that it happened, as crazy as that sounds, before we even got there. So, but it is impressive to look at the pictures afterwards and walk the building a few days later and actually see the damage inside that structure. Crazy that somebody didn't get hurt, or that we didn't see more fire than when we arrived and just saw it coming from the Charlie side. Like, I would have thought we would have burnt that building to the ground.
The other thing is like having turn hour there to give us that intel, like, hey, you're gonna have opposing lines. We got this thing surrounded. Like, that was fantastic, and for him to boot the door. But yeah, having him there to let you be a captain, and I have another backup role, even though we didn't go deep in the structure, make a bunch of turns, having him there to pop ceiling and you keep an eye on the whole picture of things. We could all stay on our own tasks, and it was nice for him to marry up with us. It was a huge benefit.
Hey, you got an opposing line on the Charlie side.
We got a line of Charlie?
There's a line on the Charlie. They're going to be opposing.
Got it.
And the first engine captain asked for vertical ventilation. Talking to the captain afterwards on the truck, the rescue, that was his task level. He went task level. Once he heard I need vertical ventilation, because we support each other as truck company, engine companies. The trucks are there to support the engine companies going inside, and when we hear folks need vertical ventilation inside, it impresses urgency upon the truck captain. So you could, that truck captain was very humble after the fire, and he was self-admitted that that's where I got kind of task level. And and to his credit and to everybody's credit on this fire specifically, the AAR was phenomenal afterwards. It was humble. There was ownership at all levels of things that should have been said, should have been done. It really comes down to a communication piece and being real clear what you want when you're asking for something that is potentially vague. If I had to do that again, it would be asking for the roof report, but tell them exactly what I would want. And that's, I'm seeing a glow coming, looks like from the Charlie side, verify we have no fire through the roof. Because now we have hose lines going in, but they're not going in too deep. I'm not overly worried about collapse potential and things like that. I was more worried about the heat. But what I needed was, I had a good picture on the alpha side. I didn't have a picture of what I wanted on the roof side. And I didn't have a super clear picture of the Charlie side. I needed those three pieces to line up for me to feel comfortable engaging in any offensive action. The chances of victim in there are low to moderate, probably at best. After the fact, we could go back and we know that somebody potentially forced the window on the alpha side and then ran inside and got out before we got there. So that potential was there, but the probability is probably in that low to moderate range. So here's some lessons learned overall from this fire. One, great arrival by Captain Ross. Set the tone, painted a good picture, set the overall tempo of this that we're crawling before we're gonna walk here. Two, Medic 101 giving a good essay of the Charlie side. Outstanding. Third, I'd say good thing is that we had water supply and fire attack from two different sides of a building that's only maybe 3,000 square feet. So that tells me operationally at the task level, the members of this place are doing phenomenal. We obviously need to understand when we say commercial building, I'm not talking about an apartment complex. There's a key factor in that, and that's one, in all likelihood, from the investigators, from everybody else, those three bays of trusses that collapsed, kind of cantilevered in, those were down before Engine 101 was on scene. So what does that tell you? I think it's a great building construction education. It tells you the potential of that, not having the sheetrock, not having that first tier fire protection, that to box something in a room for you, what the value of that does in our residential homes. The win of the agency is that every person I've spoke to after this saw something, smelled something, tasted something that just didn't feel 100% right. All of them made the choices of withdrawing at some point or pulling back, not being overly aggressive. So that's a huge win for the agency, I think. I'm not sure 20 years ago I had the situational awareness, the higher level of thinking of the bigger picture, the risk gain analysis, the assessment of risk. How much risk am I going to tolerate as a 25-year-old guy on an ambulance? I think I would just be really narrow in my view, and I would just move forward. So for the agency, it speaks volumes, I think, of our folks' ability to assess risk, first of all. Second of all, there is the burden of command is real. If you don't clearly identify that we are in a defensive posture, I need X, Y, and Z before we're going to consider engagement, then firefighters will be firefighters. They will take a little. But I'm glad and I'm proud of the agency that we took a little, but we didn't take a lot, right? We went 5 feet in, 8 feet in. We didn't go all the way across 20 feet in the other side of the building. Every person I spoke to had some picture or some view that they thought something was just not right. I had captains say, I think I ran into the T-bar ceiling. I had captains say, I think I ran into a structural member after the fact. None of these are communicated though. So when you look back on NIOSH reports, you look back on catastrophic events, all those things come out of these incidents. So this was, I think I said earlier, this was a success because it didn't have consequences. If you assign consequences to this fire, this conversation would be a lot different, right? And it's important for me that burden of command, that leadership, that captain role, that chief officer role of really understanding that you should look 6 months, 2 years, 5 years in the future of what your actions you're doing right now and what they mean in the future. Our actions and inactions have consequences. So my cleanup, define things quicker and earlier, that we're in a defensive posture. Don't say we can go 5 feet in. I don't want any crews more than 5 feet in. That's pretty clear while you and I are sitting at the table. It's not clear in the heat of the moment when your viewpoint is narrowed down, right? B7 did themselves proud. They were aggressive. They showed restraint. They had good essay, identified things as they saw them with a partial collapse on that front side. We were reactive when we saw the changes of conditions, and we were mature enough to pull back when we needed to. But when I walked into that building, it was not the same picture of what I thought it was going to look like from the outside. And I think every single person thought the same thing. So, commercial building, not having the sheetrock above your head, fire will move faster. And this fire proved to me it was a great snapshot for me for the future of understanding that truly that commercial residential mindset and what fire, that destructive fire will do before you even get there.